Your government is starving you. They are subsidizing the companies that are making your food smaller and less nutritious. We are watching this happen in real time through bad government policy that is allowing for corporate corruption and greed to make our food more unaffordable and poisonous to our bodies. Investigative journalist Lauren Southern went into detail with her new video about what is going on with our food system, how it is making us sick, what the implications are going to be for our healthcare. It was a wild video. I watched the entire thing. It blew by. I thought that you guys should see it too because it was so enlightening and it's related to what we're talking about with the carbon tax and everything. Let's get into it.
Food prices are through the roof and everyone is experiencing it.
What the hell? $109, and I also didn't purchase any meat.
I almost exploded in Walmart. When I saw the price of eggs, I got so mad.
Make it make sense. I can't afford to live anymore.
Feels illegal.
This should not cost this much.
How are people affording life right now?
Bag of shit packed shredded cheese, man. $7.47.
We have a serious problem in America.
And it's not just the prices. Our food is getting smaller and the quality is worse.
Want to talk about shrinkflation? They're taking one bite out of every piece of turkey bacon.
This shrinkflation.
So shrinkflation is particularly important because what happens is there's a certain size cutoff for a lot of these products where tax is not applied, like if it was 500 grams or more, especially with cheese and dairy, some of these other things. So now that the shrinkflation is hitting, you're actually getting taxed on some of these items that you previously weren't taxed on before. So it's a double damage dip. It's crazy.
Stuff is getting out of control, okay? If there's one thing in this world that I know, it's what a goddamn Big Mac looks like.
And what's even crazier is it's happening everywhere. America, Canada, the UK, Australia, no one is being spared. And now, people are resorting to some pretty wild things.
Rising cost of groceries is getting to the point now where more Americans are choosing to dine out rather than spend money on home-cooked meals.
Prices everywhere are going up, but prices are going up more quickly at the grocery store than they are at restaurants.
As cash-strapped Canadians struggle with inflation and turn to the country's biggest dollar store for bargains.
And probably the most absurd of all the phenomenons going on here, the inflation ship.
Inflation is so damn high, y'all got a couple standard relationships that fucking hate each other. Just so they won't have to pay them bills by their damn self.
The term is inflation ships.
At this point, I'm not even dating for love. I'm looking to date somebody so we can sleep platonically next to each other.
What you want is an inflation ship? Yes, I accept that, Rose. I want that, me.
Ladies, I am single, so if you're looking for an inflation ship, let me know.
Seriously, what the hell is going on? Let's find out. This batch of groceries 4 years ago, 2020, would have been around $50. Today, over 100 for this here, just the basics. I was cleaning my house the other day and I came across these flyers just from local grocery stores around my area. And I literally had to stop what I was doing, just thinking to myself, like, no, this has to be an antique. Like, this has to be from the 2000s, the 2010s. Turns out, I look at the bottom on the date and I read March 2020. Am I losing my mind? Like, 2020 March, $5.99 for a pack of bacon. You're looking at $10.69. Unbelievable. $3.99 for strawberries. Strawberries, $9.99. That is more than double the price.
I would like to know, just to be fair, is she doing, no pun intended, apples to apples comparison? And I believe she also lives in BC, potentially Vancouver area. Groceries are a little bit more expensive there. But I mean, $10 strawberries is crazy. How big of a pack is that?
Price. Lean ground beef, $7.25 a kilo.
That's one of the crazier ones. I buy a lot of ground beef and I, am getting a deal because I go to a local butcher shop. $3.29 a pound would be amazing. Even me getting a deal, I'm paying $6.50
kilogram. And now let's look on the lean ground beef I just bought. $19.82 a kilogram. I'm not making this up. That $7.29 to $19.82. I don't know what people are doing. I don't know how people are doing this. The one that takes
They're spending off debt, eating less. That's why we've seen the grocery consumption is down and debt is up.
the cake, good old steak, right? I made sure, I went to the butcher and I asked, am I buying the exact same steak as in this flyer? Yep, 100%. $13.29 a kilogram. That's what it says in this flyer here. You look at this, the one I bought today from IGA, $56.20 a kilogram.
Steak is one that hits, and I know exactly about steak because in 2020 I was doing the carnivore diet, and so I was buying steaks all the time, specifically ribeye. And when I was buying steaks, they were $12 or $13 at my local butcher shop. That exact same butcher shop is still open, and I still go there. I do not buy anywhere near the amount of steaks that I was previously buying because that same $12 or $13 steak is now $22, $24, sometimes $26 depending on the size. And I mean, $13 was a more expensive one for me in 2020. So we're talking around 100% increase since 2020.
$13 to $56 a kilogram. This is the same measurement, and you are paying double for the same product.
This isn't just making us broke, it's making us sick.
Obesity is now the biggest health crisis in the world. For the first time in history, children are facing shorter lives than their parents.
The CDC has released statistics that show people in more states are larger than ever. Here's how obesity rates looked in 2012. They range from low to moderate, with no states having an obesity rate above 35%. Now fast forward 10 years and the rates skyrocket above 35%.
Heart disease is the rampaging #1 killer in America, causing an astonishing 1 in every 4 deaths in this country.
Just think about
that was a crazy point for me too, because we always think about the spending, because I'm such a numbers guy. So I think about the spending, the debt, people not being able to actually afford these things, skipping meals. And that's been one of the issues. But then I forget some people can't skip meals. So they have to make sure they're eating all the time. And guess what? A pack of chicken breasts is $22, or you can get 3 frozen pizzas for $22 or less. Sometimes they're $6 a pop. It's $18. So I look at it and I go, okay, buy the frozen pizzas on sale, feed your kids, feed your family for $1 amount you can afford, or get 1 pack of 3 chicken breasts for $22. Think about the long-term health, the cost this is going to be on our healthcare system, on our citizens, on the mental health of people. Just, it's so damaging thinking that everybody's going to the center aisles now and just buying the box junk.
This. More people are dying from our food crisis, obesity crisis, the crap they're putting in the meals you have day to day. Yet, have you heard any major politician talking about this on the campaign trail, on the news, in your parliaments? They were able to shut down the world over COVID. Not nearly as many people dying of that as obesity. And you think they don't have the ability to fix our food crisis? They do. But there's something deeply wrong going on here.
The extra virgin olive oils are being switched out with cheap ones.
Parmesan cheese products do not contain any Parmesan cheese.
Wow.
So why is this happening? Well, if you watch the news, they'll just tell you it's a bit of cheeky inflation.
All right, welcome back. The latest inflation numbers are out this morning.
This morning, Americans are paying the price for rising inflation, from the grocery store to housing and transportation.
The biggest takeaway is that inflation is higher than hoped by households, by the Federal Reserve, by economists. We're in this situation, Kana, where inflation continues to be sticky, where those numbers just won't go down as much as they should.
The news keeps saying inflation is only up between 5 and 10%. So why are my strawberries up over 200%? It's because there's something else going on here.
To be fair on that statistic, 5 or 10% per year, but that's compounded since 2019, 2020, all these times. So it's been 5 or 10% per year. That entire time compounding is going to make it that much higher versus 5 or 10%. That's the problem, is we often use our base number of strawberries used to be $3.99. What's going on? But then we look at it last year, the year previous. Oh, they were $8.99. Now they're up 10%. Well, that's 89 cents.
In order to understand what is happening here, we need to speak to the real source of our food, and that is farmers.
Tempers are flaring in France, with farmers burning tires, spraying government buildings with manure, and shutting down roads leading into Paris. This as they demand better prices for their products and more government support.
A large convoy of hundreds of angry farmers driving heavy-duty tractors arrived at the European Union headquarters in Belgium today.
All across the West, farmers are furious. They feel betrayed, and they are shutting down entire cities. In the Netherlands, the same. And in London, just this week, they shut down the parliament with hundreds of tractors.
They brought over 100 tractors to central London. Farmers turned out in their numbers, but united behind one message: no farmers, no food, no future.
Gareth Wynne-Jones is one of Britain's favorite farmers, and this is what he had to say to me. So I'm just about to pop on a call with Gareth, who has been speaking at all of these massive rallies I've seen popping up across the world. Right now in Wales, the farmers have been protesting the government massively over their horrendous policies destroying their industry.
So obviously, I've mentioned in other videos, I grew up in a farming community, so I'm seeing the attack that's happening on small farmers. And it's so funny because these small farmers actually kind of operate on a razor's edge. They're not running around driving Lamborghinis as prices go up. What's been happening is the small farmers keep getting punished so that the control valves are controlled by the industrial farmers, where they get to have all the power. Oh, they get the government subsidies. Oh, they get the access to the land at cheaper prices because the government's going to give it to them.
We've become used to seeing tractors blockading capital cities across Europe in recent weeks. Well, today it was Cardiff's turn as thousands of angry farmers protested outside the Welsh Parliament. They're complaining against being told they need to set aside some of their land for environmental schemes like tree planting.
Many here are upset at proposed reforms which mean 10% of their land must be planted with trees.
It'll take approximately 14 acres out of my farm, which is a small farm in the first instance. I don't know where I'm going to go.
Gareth, can you hear me okay? Where are you at the moment?
Just finished ploughing our little allotments there, potatoes and other things growing over here as well, so yeah.
As I've been watching these rallies that you've been speaking at, you've been saying you've literally had to cut down on livestock to meet quotas mandated by the government because apparently your livestock are causing climate change issues. Can you explain that a little more?
We're feeling let down, you know? We're feeling let down, we're feeling frustrated. We're good at what we do. You know, we've fed the world affordably and sustainably.
Imagine telling farmers, hey guys, you need to stop farming your land so much. We need to plant trees. And unless those are trees that are like fruit bearing, that they're allowed to also farm those trees, it's psychotic. And again, it seems like this coordinated attack against farming and food, making it so much harder to feed people. And we know all of the countries that Lauren listed that is dealing with similar problems as us. They are also dealing with mass immigration and environmental fees and all of these extra taxes. Like, these are highly taxed nations that are dealing with mass immigration, similar to Canada, that seem to be following an interesting playbook.
For many years. And what really pisses me off, excuse my French, is the way they're trying to portray livestock as, you know, the demise of climate. And I'll tell you, I take my sheep up onto the heft every morning. And I'll stand there taking these sheep, which are supposedly causing a climate catastrophe, when I'm watching 40 planes, 50 planes, 60 planes an hour flying over me, you know? And you tell me my sheep and cows are to blame. You know, we've got solar farms going up everywhere, taking productive land. Let's not take land that's productive out of the equation, because we're losing enough land to, you know, new housing, building, and then you're talking about planting these massive areas up in Scotland of trees.
Yeah, well, and England is a small island, and then you got solar farms, plus they are getting smoked with mass immigration. But, you know, all the leaders there, all friends, and they all meet in the same locations, and they all do that, and they all plan the same things. So you taking up more land for housing to house this mass immigration and crazy country growth, and then saying take away from your farmland for the trees. Ugh.
Which, are they going to benefit anybody? Unless you're a beaver and you're going to eat back, I think you're going to be bloody hungry very soon. The only people that are destroying our countryside are government policies, because they're not listening to people that are on the coalface, the people that are working the land, the people that they've got their hands in the ground producing the food. They're not listening to them globally. And that is a major problem. That is a major problem.
Where is this all headed? What's going to happen?
We're sleepwalking into food shortages. It's not going to be long. You know, you're talking to the people on the ground. People are cutting down on their animals. People are, you know, pulling out. There's less crops going in. There's more land being taken out for all different scenarios. So, you know, these governments are going to starve people. They're going to make people hungry.
And then it's going to come down to low nutritional value industrial farms. Oh, you know, eat the bugs. We got the bug products because look, all this natural food, you can't get access to it anymore. We've got food shortages. But look, I've got this pack of crickets right here. Look at the protein value. You guys can eat that, no problem.
And what will they do then? You know, they'll have to look for somewhere else to get their food.
Everyone can feel it right now. Quality food has seemingly disappeared. Why is this happening? Is it they just want mass-produced, processed, factory-farmed food?
You know, they want to bring food into factories. They want to produce gloop, you know, rubbish to feed people. That then makes them ill. You know, we've got a massive diabetes problem, obesity problem. All this is to do with what these children are eating. These processed foods are killing us. You know, they're killing our children and the next generation.
Is this future that you're talking about, is it inevitable, or is there another way that we could live?
My great-grandfather would have gone round the village with a little milk float, selling milk, you know? He had 10 cows up here, milking by hand.
That's why I always try to do my best to support local. I'm still not doing great. The only thing that I've semi-committed to is almost all of my meat is local right now. I'm very fortunate that the butcher shop close to me, they will put on deals and sales, have the money going into locals, farmers' pockets, but not everybody has access to that because especially if you live in a city, it's hard to get access to those local things, especially local produce can be pretty expensive.
And growing a field of potatoes, and he'd be selling them potatoes and swedes and carrots, you know? There was a lot more people that were dependent on the farmer but understood the importance of the farmer.
Farming is a slow business, but it never stops. Today one can still hear the song of the scythe and watch the beautiful rhythm of its swing.
Now it seems to be like, oh yeah, I can walk into a supermarket in January and buy my strawberries, which taste of nothing. You know, when you taste my first strawberries in the next couple of weeks, they're just truly orgasmic food. It's just...
But he's right. I always think that's really funny too, because these politicians never talk about how, you know, we're getting all this produce up from areas that we never would have gotten it before, the amount of environmental impact. If we allowed Canadian farmers to be competitive with their pricing and they weren't being punished through carbon taxes and so many other things, we wouldn't have to bring up produce down from South America all year round. We have greenhouses. Close to me, there's massive areas of greenhouses, but these products often just aren't competitive because of the pricing.
Mind-blowing when you get this kind of food onto your plate, you know, it just... And you know the nutrient density of that food is tenfold to what you're buying in that supermarket. So if you think of it, by paying that extra, by following a farmer, by finding a farmer, by giving that money directly to that farmer, you're taking out the middleman, which are the supermarkets and the multinational corporations, which are taking all the money from local areas and sticking it in hedge funds out in Barbados while they're sipping on a sun lounger, drinking their pina coladas as everybody else goes hungry and poorer.
So if the government continue treating farmers like this, what are we going to do? What are you guys going to do?
It's heartbreaking. You know, you could be looking at the last generation farming here. You could be looking at the last generation after 375 years. That mountain behind me is a Celtic hill fort. That was where the Celts lived, okay? And just underneath there is a field called Caegraig. 6,000 years ago, people were working in that field and making axe heads from this granite here. 6,000 years ago, people were working this land. So
Why does it feel like all of these Western governments specifically want to erase history and sort of take away national identity? They water down the patriotism and they take away these crazy historical things. Like 6,000 years ago, his family's been there 370 years, just knowing these things. And they don't want that. But why? It's the most environmentally friendly. It's the most patriotic. It's the best for the local communities. Like, I just don't get it.
You know, things have come to a whole circle, in my opinion, where they're trying to take out the most important person on God's earth. And that's not bigging us up. But without a farmer, you will not have food. Because you take these people out of that equation and you lose that generation, you won't find it again.
No.
I'm telling you. Wake up and smell the coffee before the coffee, the meat, and the wheat is all gone.
One of the biggest things that is always bad for countries is when the farming gets destroyed, because teaching new farmers and growing farmers from scratch is one of the hardest things to do. Almost every country that's expelled their farmers, punished the farmers, gotten rid of people, has always begged for them back.
This interview honestly blew my mind, and this isn't just someone's opinion. Gareth is a farmer, literally talking to me from his field, a field that his family have toiled for hundreds of years. Green policies are decimating his land. That means there's no room for farming. He's got to fill the place with solar panels and trees. And you know what? Here in Canada, government policy is not working out so great either. There are videos of farmers here pouring out thousands of liters of milk daily because of limits imposed on them by the government.
At the end of the month, I have to dump all my milk. Oh, look at this milk running away because it's the end of the month.
So let's just put this whole picture together.
I don't want to get unalived, so I'm not going to dig into this too much, but the dairy cartel in Ontario is wild all across Canada. The amount of lobbying that Canada Dairy does. Anyways, just look into it. Maybe we'll talk about it in other videos, but specifically the dairy industry, the amount of money they spend on lobbying the government and, you know, the control they have with dumping milk. I'm sure you guys have seen some of it. A little weird, that's all I'm saying. I'm very happy and I love life. That's all I'm saying as well.
First, you've got inflation, which is real, but being used as a scapegoat. Second, you've got these green policies making it really hard for farmers. Then, you've got the competition that they were selling to, decimated through lockdown and COVID, and basically just these giant retailers getting to control everything, buying cheap from these farmers who are under the thumb of government and upping those prices, which is where price gouging comes in.
Price gouging is when a business raises the price on goods or services higher than what's reasonable.
And price gouging? Not just a conspiracy. In fact, a whistleblower has just come out in Australia speaking up against two of the largest food retailers, Coles and Woolworths, saying they are price gouging just as I described.
Arriving on his own, Abdel Badura taking on two supermarket giants.
Blowing the whistle on the supermarket duopolies, price gouging and market power abuse is the biggest risk I have taken both personally and professionally.
Mr.
Yeah, shout out to that guy, because when you have, like, Canada has oligopolies, we even have more than two, but, you know, we've got just a few chains and a few businesses that kind of control everything in a lot of these industries. But we have the same thing. We know that Galen Weston and all of the Loblaws company, they were price fixing bread. They've been caught. We know that they're price gouging. And then something I learned in another video I wasn't able to talk about, I found out that the supply chain on the back end, what they're doing is these companies, because they control all of the shelf space all the way across Canada. So when they negotiate, basically, they can't negotiate the actual prices as much. So they negotiate the fees, and that's how they make more money. Basically, on the fees for shelf space and working with these companies, they say, listen, we're Loblaws. We feed all of Canada. You want to work with us? You're going to pay us an additional $80,000 for shelf space now. That $80,000 now is obviously put into the price. They have to raise their prices to keep up with that. And that is through corporate corruption, because only a few companies do that. Again, very happy. I love living life.
Badura spoke out as the Senate examined supermarket pricing, calling on his experience working for suppliers dealing with the big grocers.
During this time, I've witnessed firsthand the tactics and practices Australia's supermarket duopoly, Coles and Woolworths, deploy to price gouge suppliers and ultimately customers.
Coincidentally, when I lived in Australia, Coles and Woolies were some of the only shops allowed to stay open under government mandate. Just think about that. And it's not just Australia. Supermarket profits are doubling everywhere, whether it be Walmart in the US, Tesco in the UK, doesn't matter. Their profit margins are over double what they were in 2021. And this is after controlling for inflation. During lockdown, something strange happened. Your small green grocer, gone. Your local mom and pop shop, gone. Local butcher, dairy, gone. All that was left was conglomerates. Conglomerates who decide just how much they're going to spend buying food from farmers. Conglomerates who decide how much you pay. And conglomerates who are in total control. And our governments allowed this to happen because what did we do? We bailed out these conglomerates. We let them stay open while everyone else had to close during COVID.
We're still seeing business closings that are as a result of COVID, just because of like the legacy debt that they were left with, all of these things that the operating became so impossible. And now every time a small business closes, they go to another big business. It's such a shame. Like in London, in the last year, I feel like I've personally seen like 8 to 10 small businesses close. And comment down below if you guys are seeing that as well. It seems like it's happening at an alarming rate.
We propped them up, lobbyists defended them, and government pumped bukus of money into them because they are in bed with each other.
$3.5 billion was spent on lobbying, nearly twice the combined budgets of the Senate and the House. Corporations are spending the most. Of the top 100 entities lobbying, 95% are corporations.
Would they ever think to bail out the local citizen with a small shop that can't afford their food now? Never.
Nope, they call your debts in so that you're in even a worse position. If you see some of the money that the government employees in Canada are being paid by some of these lobbyists, they sell their soul for the smallest amount of money. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, they got $1,200 and then they voted a certain way. For $1,200, they're selling out Canada.
And listen, I am not some massive anti-capitalist ranter here. Businesses exist to make money. That's great. Not so great when the government and these corporations have their thumb on the scales, though. And this could be fixed overnight. They locked down the world overnight. If they can take away your shop like that, they can bring in anti-lobbying laws, they can bring in anti-monopoly laws, they can bring in all of the policies needed to fix this overnight. But they won't. And that is why we are all poor. That is why you are paying an arm and a leg to get eggs and butter. And that
There are other things too. I mean, obviously constricting the supply, increasing the amount of immigration, but then also the constant government spending. All of those things together are going to make wild inflation, which allows for the hiding of price gouging, because it's easy, like she said, to just blame inflation. But I honestly think, like Canada in particular, we are getting, this year alone, we are already 47% higher population growth by this time last year. It is psychotic levels of immigration that we're experiencing. That's mouths to feed. That's food they have to buy, which means, okay, that's the demand side. We know that that is growing, but then we're now seeing the supply side is falling. So demand increasing, supply falling, and then government spending continuing to subsidize all of these things, because these other countries that we're talking about have crazy government spending as well. The US federal debt is wild. So if they continue to keep up this formula, it's going to make things worse. It's not going to get better.
That is who is responsible. We are being screwed. You are being screwed. The middle class, the working class, all of us are being screwed. The only people not being screwed are the politicians running our countries and the CEOs of these conglomerates who are paying off those politicians to ensure they can keep screwing us.
Have you guys seen that there's a full, this is American, not Canadian, but it's obviously happening in Canada as well. Nancy Pelosi, who's now worth like over $250 million, even though she's worked in the government her entire life. There's an actual index tracker now that you can just follow that index tracker. It's all of her trades, and you will outperform basically every hedge fund manager, the S&P 500, everything, just by investing like Nancy Pelosi.
People skipping meals because they simply can't afford it.
No report shows obesity rates are on the rise.
I don't know, man. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm sitting outside work. I don't understand how I make $34 an hour and I can't function. I don't understand why things are so hard right now.
How they're expecting people to be able to afford to live is beyond me right now. Barely fucking surviving.
We've got probably the highest levels of poverty in living memory amongst children.
Over and over and over again. And it's only gonna get worse. And it makes me ask myself, what is the point of living in the West? It is supposed to be cleaner here. It is supposed to be happier here, healthier. But all we are experiencing is this perpetual downward spiral where our food is becoming more toxic, where we have
Demographics have changed wildly, which makes things a little bit crazier.
families with jobs that are having to go to food banks. And if normal families haven't been pushed to accessing food banks, they are looking at things like butter now as a luxury. They are buying toxic waste food to feed their families who are becoming sicker. It is not normal, and we shouldn't accept it, because the truth is, they won't stop. They won't stop until every dime in your pocket is in theirs, whether it be the conglomerates or the politicians. They want to be rich while you are living in filth and hungry, and you should be angry.
Great video from Lauren. Like I said, she is an independent investigative journalist. I'm actually going to link her channel down below so you guys can check out some of her other stuff. Obviously, I don't agree with everything she says, but she does make great videos. Some of them are award-winning. They're very, very impressive. So make sure you check out Lauren's channel, because I do think she has a lot of awesome stuff. Remember, I am a real estate agent in London, Ontario. Click the link below if you want to work with me or my team all the way across Canada. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're still here, this is a long one, but I thought this was really important stuff. Do not forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.